Hey everyone, it's Tammy. Hope everybody's doing well wherever you are in your part of the world. It's always funny for me to watch. I have to say this when I see other people's videos and they're in the southern hemisphere, and so they're all starting to warm up, get dressed for more, chillier weather, and we're wearing warmer clothes. And I'm now at this point dating all that's getting into the more summery types of clothes. I mean, just a few days ago, I was having to wear warmer clothes. So it's just the whole weather thing has been very interesting these last couple of years. But that said, just really happy to be here. And I came up with this idea for this particular video based on something I actually saw in an Instagram story, but it's not the first time I've ever heard this. It has a lot to do with just the whole idea of being fragrance free. And in fact, it's actually quite interesting altogether. I have to tell you that I'm on an online networking website called Alignable. And one of the questions that was posed was regarding body odor in the workplace. So it's like all of this stuff was coming up today around the area of scent and aroma. So I figured let's talk about scent. The Instagram story that I saw was somebody who had actually gone into a yoga class, and another student had brought in tea tree oil. And apparently, this particular individual had and what she was describing as an adverse reaction. I mean, she could develop a migraine as a result because she can't stand the smell of tea tree. And her question, truthfully, was, should these people be allowed? Should people be allowed to bring in their own oils like this um, when somebody else could be hypersensitive? And she's saying that her sense of smell is very, very sensitive. And the fact is that our nose, the nose actually has more olfactory receptor cells in it than any other receptor cell in the body. Right now, I believe I just was doing an article for an online publication, and I was pointing out the fact that inhalation is extraordinarily beneficial. We always think that I'm just smelling it doesn't do it any good. There's approximately 200 active functional olfactory cells, olfactory receptors, pardon me, in the nasal cavity. The human being alone has between 500 and 750 olfactory receptors, but over 200 of them are classified as functional. The other ones, they're still trying to figure out what they're actually doing in the body. But the bottom line is we have an average of about 500 olfactory receptor cells in the nose. And what, their full function is, they're still trying to figure it out. This is something I want to say that the technology that we have in order to study the body and even bioactives in plants is fairly new. I mean, it's only new in the sense that we've only had maybe 5 decades worth of time to explore this. And of course, our technology continues to increase. And so the more it increases, the more we're beginning to learn. And they're also discovering the fact that there's just more and more going on in the body than they ever expected. And olfactory is one of them. So somebody claiming to have a super sensitive olfactory, or I'm sorry, a super sensitive sense of smell. My first instinct is, well, yeah, that's supposed to be your sense of smell is actually how you survive. It's actually the key to opening every potential, anything really. It helps us to survive. It actually helps us to mate. It's a very, very powerful sense. However, for somebody also to say that, the other side to this is I have a super sensitive sense of smell could be an indication that the autonomic nervous system is unstable. It's, basically been activated. And so everything becomes hypersensitive, right? Because think about it, if you're, how do I want to explain this? Because it's hard to believe, it's hard to imagine ourselves being in this chronic stress mode when our lives aren't being threatened. Okay. I mean, if we look around, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Do you understand my hand gestures? Um, um, what I'm getting at is there's no dog attacking us. There's no prowlers. There are, we're not in a flood. We're not in a fire. I mean, for the most part, the majority of us are not sitting in a life-threatening situation, physically life-threatening. At the same time, I really want to emphasize the fact that our lives are being threatened on a cellular level. And it's just because of the chemicals, okay? And then, of course, as I've mentioned before, we are just basically houseplants with, complex emotions. And that means our mind and our emotions actually have an influence also on this stress reaction. So, in theory, the body is consistently protecting itself as a result of all of these additional chemicals. And in the last video, I was talking about histamine, and I was referencing the environmental estrogens, also known as endocrine disruptors, which are both man-made and nature-made. So there's various levels of these endocrine disruptors, and natural wouldn't be a problem if we didn't have all the man-made chemicals. And so because of that, it's time to kind of be a little bit more aware of what we're introducing to the body. However, back to our lives being threatened, no. Like I said, the majority of us are just going through our day right now, and there's no incoming threat that we can visually see. On the other hand, though, the body is protecting you from whatever is in the air, from potentially some foods that you may have eaten, you know, heavy metals, you name it. The body is on guard. And because of the environment that we live in, it's consistently on guard. That would be the reason why we would have. Sorry, I heard a noise and I'm just making sure my dog's not like bringing a rattlesnake in the house because it sounded like a rattle. I don't think she is, but yeah. Yes, we do have those out here. Rattlesnakes and great horned owls and coyotes and a bobcat. I even had a bobcat on my roof the other night. So this is the world that we live in. Anyway, um, but no, my life isn't threatened along those lines. And I do like living out in the mountains like this because it is a lot less of the um, city environment as far as heavy metals and pesticides and fertilizers and so forth. So, but that doesn't mean that my life isn't, my body isn't feeling threatened because we do have cars coming through here. We do have planes flying over. Air passes over us. There are foods, there are chemicals being sprayed. So there are some factors. And then, of course, when I do go into Santa Fe, it is, I'm around a lot of cars. And so the environment is constantly having an influence on the system, which is going to aggravate the autonomic nervous system. In other words, it's going to activate a lot of systemic changes that are required for being on high alert. Because if the life is threatened, we need to be ready. We need to be able to get going. We need to take action. So our sense of smell is going to be heightened. Our sense of hearing is going to be, is going to alter because we're listening for more things. And so this is a natural and instinctual reaction to the stress mechanism. I hope this makes sense. So when somebody says they have a super sensitive sense of smell, the first thing that goes through my mind is, oh, well, you have an overactive autonomic nervous system. So that says to me instability, unstable system, and potentially, you got some immune things happening because all of that activity, especially when, like I was talking about with estrogen, all of that histamine, it's the endocrine disruptors, these environmental estrogens that activate all of this. Estrogen is a primary signaling molecule, and although it may not be the one that our body produces, it may be something that's being introduced through food, through oils, through, like I said, the environment. There's over 70,000 confirmed man-made endocrine disruptors at this point, 45 million chemicals and counting, and over 70,000 of them have been confirmed as endocrine disruptors, and that's just man-made. Of course, science is also looking into the essential oils, and there's all these up in arms. We need to be careful about all of that. The fact is we need to be careful about it all. Hence, let's talk about scent. I do have that song in my mind. Let's talk about sex, because tonight I have to say this because tonight on my radio show, my son and I are going to be talking about sex, but not in a salacious way. We're going to be talking about it from and hopefully I'll be able to record it and share it here, but we're going to be talking about it as the way it's used and not used and so forth. It's going to be an interesting conversation. So I digress. Anyway, so talking about scent, should somebody be allowed to bring an essential oil in or a fragrance in there? I mean, it's interesting. I just want to I don't think there's any should or shouldn't. Here's the deal. When I saw the question about body odor in the office place, and everybody's like, the owner is like, well, what do I do? First and foremost, it's probably wise just to have a group meeting and talk about hygiene. Apparently the people that come in and have the body odor have just come from the gym, and I don't know, but I find it interesting that we're so tentative about talking about that, but we have no problem slapping signs up on the wall, on the door, I mean, I've actually had restaurants where I've called to make a reservation and been told that I can't wear fragrance. I mean, so we don't have a problem telling people not to wear a fragrance, but we have a problem mentioning, unfavorable odors. And so the thing to do, honestly, is there's two things you can do. I mean, this is just talking out loud. Number one, you can diffuse oils in the office area that will neutralize odors. You don't necessarily want to mask them or try to strong arm them with other scent, but you can always do things that would neutralize it. Believe it or not, tea tree would be a good one. I'm just thinking of, I mean, lemon essential oil in a diffuser would be okay, because it does have antiseptic qualities. You could also even do like cinnamon bark or cassia bark. Those two, actually the lemon and the cinnamon combined is a fairly pleasant aroma, and you don't have to put a lot of it, and it would actually neutralize any of the microbes that are causing the odor in the air. That would be my first suggestion. Then I would probably do like either a staff meeting or just send out a general memo requesting that hygiene is important. And I don't know if there's people, outside people coming in, it's respectful. So respect yourself and make sure that you've taken care of your own personal hygiene before you come in. I think that's a fair thing to say. As far as the whole thing with scent and bringing scent into a room, it's interesting. When I first got into this, meaning with the oils, and I would go to trade shows where there was a lot of seminars with regards to oils and naturals, and this is where I actually met my mentors, and this was a very, very long time ago. And I would have, like I said, they'd have these seminars and symposiums that we could attend, and then but at the meantime, we could also sell product and be talking about our business. And people would walk by and go, oh, fragrance just gives me a headache. And that's not I mean, that's legitimate. Again, the super sensitive sense of smell. Again, but I hear, I mean, all of these reactions, there's a lot going through my head right now. So what I want to say is, like I've already mentioned, the whole autonomic nervous system. So you've got a body that's reacting. If you're reacting that harshly to tea tree and she's claiming migraine, then that tells me that the body's trying to detox, because that's what tea tree is going to do. Tea tree is also known to be an endocrine, believe it or not. Tea tree has also been identified as one of those ones that is acts like estrogen in the body. So it makes sense that she'd have a migraine, and it makes sense that she would have a super sensitive sense of smell, because tea tree, I just flashed on that tea tree is actually acts like estrogen in the body, so it's going to activate the autonomic nervous system. So aside from everything else that I said, let's just say the woman lives in LA. Let's just say LA's environment isn't bothering her, but then all of a sudden the introduction of that tea tree, it did one of two things, or possibly both things. One, it is an antimicrobial, so it will actually help begin to, if there's microbes in her system, meaning in this case yeast, which is not uncommon as a result of the highly active stress response. The autonomic nervous system, the immune system, again, raises Histamine drops nitric oxide, and when histamine levels go up, yeast goes up. So to inhale something like tea tree, you have activated the immune system as well to kick that stuff out. And if the body's trying to kick it out faster than the lymph system can clear it, then you're going to get headaches. You're going to feel sick. So of course the oils are going to potentially trigger these kinds of reactions. Should people be cautious? Yeah, I think it's a time, like just with the whole hygiene, it's be respectful. You may like the oils, but it may affect somebody else. And I think these are fine guidelines to be putting into place because of the sensitivity. It's not because people are like crybabies. I don't mean sensitive like that. I mean their bodies are truly sensitive. A lot of us are truly sensitive. The same thing can be said for synthetic fragrances. I find it so fascinating that many people will go, you guys like oils, I get that. But there's a lot of people that would say, oils don't have any benefit. Yet we're always, up in arms about don't wear fragrance. And so synthetic fragrances can do the same thing. They are still chemicals. Okay. So if we take out the word synthetic and we take out the word natural and we just look at scent, they're all chemicals, whether they are man-made or nature-made. Just like environmental estrogens, we have man-made and nature-made. They're chemicals. And the body is absolutely going to react to it. I am finding myself a little disturbed by the fact that people want to complain about this and say I have the right. Well, you do have the right to wear it. Like I said, I've been put off when I've gone to I tried to go to a restaurant and I was told that I couldn't wear any fragrance, including oils. And years ago, that used to offend me. Today, especially that happened about 5 years ago. Since that time, my research has become quite extensive and quite in depth to be able to sit here and go, I totally get it. I totally get it. I mean, if I have very strong oil, if I have put oils on and they're strong and I can still smell them, I probably shouldn't go somewhere where it's a fragrance sensitive area. And I shouldn't be around a lot of people until it dissipates. I mean, that's just, I can take care of myself, but at the same time, be respectful of how other people are going to react. It's not that people, like I said, they're not crybabies. The body is overly sensitive as a result of the environment. And so these scents, again, whether they're natural or man-made, are chemicals that are also affecting the body in addition to everything else. And then we have no concept. We do not know the mental and emotional distress of any other individual. The only way we could possibly know that to the full extent is to be inside their body and to be inside their head. Otherwise, we can only speculate and we can only take their word for what they tell us. But the fact is that we don't know what other people are going through mentally and emotionally. And if they've had a particularly stressful time mentally and emotionally in the last day or so, their body is going to be overreactive as well. This is just a natural experience. And so I think it's time for us to stop harping on one another and just start being understanding that the body's doing the best that it can. And if we didn't have all these synthetic chemicals, we wouldn't have all this hypersensitivity. I can assure you, whether it be emotional outbursts or migraines or everything in between, I'm sorry that, scent offends so many people or affects so many people, but I think if I had one wish, I would think that people who are super sensitive to smell would understand that it's not the other person offending them. It's their body actually sending them a message. It's their body letting them know that it is unstable. It's not the other person's fault. If you're offended by somebody's body odor, are you really offended, or is it? I mean, I get that we have bad. I mean, this is an interesting point that I've been wrestling with, especially this last spring, because we've had so many plants that came up around here that had some really pungent odors, something I wouldn't want to go stick my nose in. But I'm really just trying to accept the fact that it's the way nature is expressing itself. Now, that said, we don't want to be sitting in a confined office space with the smell of armpit yeast and bacteria. That's just not something that we want. If we can, we want to be, I do understand. So, I mean, smell is smell. And again, if we did things to neutralize the odors that we don't like I said, with the lemon and the cassia bark, um, you'd actually probably see higher levels of productivity. You'd probably see less absenteeism to boot, and as you are also neutralizing odors. So it's a fine line. It's a delicate conversation because I realize there's a lot of things that many of us don't want to smell, or we don't like to smell it, and then there's other things that do affect us. But um, if a person is doing everything they can to take care of themselves, I just think it's time to stop blaming everybody else. And again, if somebody is not respecting themselves, then I think we have, if it's our bubble, if we created this bubble and we invited these people into our bubble, then we have the right to ask them to please, you know, be respectful of themselves and everybody else. Whether you're using a fragrance or you're promoting your body odor, it doesn't make any difference. What you do on your own time in your own bubble, that's up to you. But I think it's time to recognize that um, that scent is scent, and it's going to affect many people in many ways. And it comes down to this, like I said, that the autonomic nervous system has been activated for whatever reason, whether it be the environment or the mind and emotions. Okay, and in this case, with this person with the tea tree, I could say it's probably a combination of all of it, but clearly the tea tree activated it. And so she's got a legitimate complaint, and it brings up a great topic to talk about. And I'm happy to talk about this further because right now I'm really conscious of the fact that, oh my God, I might be offending people. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just trying to say scent is scent, no matter if we like the smell or not. And if we don't like, but again, if I've created this bubble and I've invited you into this bubble, then I have the right to kind of create boundaries, and we do it respectfully. We don't attack one another. These people who came in from the gym may not even realize that they smell the way they do. It may be that they have old clothes on. I mean, I don't know. We can only sit here and speculate. So the thing to do is to have a respectful conversation. And we can do that. And if people get offended, well, then maybe they just don't belong in your tribe. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be something large and dramatic. And as far as scent in, stores or restaurants or yoga studios, I think it's also wise to be respectful of those areas too, because the body is on overdrive and your choice of oils could very well be affecting someone. In fact, this actually brings up another thought for me. Like I said, I was writing some articles on essential oils for an online publication, and I was asked to do it. And the parameters really weren't laid out for me. And now I've submitted my first draft, and it was just not what they were looking for. They're giving me an opportunity to resubmit. Totally cool. But now I get what they want. They just want mainstream information. I had given them my lot of information, and it was too much, and it was not going to sell product. And the whole idea with this publication is to sell product. But one of the things that I said in my first draft, and I'm going to share it here, is that we have to be careful of these blends. So if we're talking about oils, or whether they are genuine and authentic or they're altered, it doesn't make any difference. If we're talking about a scent, and they may be a combination of natural and man-made, at this point I'm not concerned about that. The combination of chemicals is borderline irresponsible, especially when it comes to essential oils, because these chemicals do interact with other chemicals. That's what chemicals do. That's the nature of chemistry. It's just always interacting. So again, it's not to be disrespectful, but it is a good idea when we go into public places, especially if we're using blends, that there could be something in, maybe it's perfectly fine for you, but it might be affecting somebody else because they're taking medications. And like I said, there are a lot of these oils and a lot of these chemicals are endocrine disruptors. That means that they alter the endocrine system. And if somebody's system is more stressed or taxed than yours is, it's going to affect them differently. This is another reason why minding our scent is important, especially when it comes to a blend. If you're just using a single essence, then, well, tea tree, you got to be careful. and lavender. And like I said, there's a few of them. And so being aware, that's what I'm trying to teach here. And over in aromatherapy as a lifestyle, is being aware of what oils do what, so that we can not only just take care of ourselves, but avoid flare-ups in somebody else. Because think about it, if you use an oil in public and it creates a physical reaction, now that person's going to react in a way that it's going to be inflamed. Okay, because the internal reaction with created inflammation. That's the reason why this person, in this case, developed a migraine. Now, all of a sudden, the reaction is going to become inflamed if, in fact, a dialogue takes place. And when she made the Instagram story, you could tell she was a little bit rattled by it. So, and understandably so. But if we start taking responsibility for ourselves and going, okay, this is what I'm using, this works for me, and it may affect somebody else. Just taking that into consideration. So use caution with blends, because they don't take a lot of the blends in the market that I'm seeing do not take the hormonal system into. I mean, and I say this with all due respect, because sometimes they'll say hormonal blends, but the fact is a lot of them are estrogen. They act like estrogen in the body. That's what I mean by the hormonal system. So they don't take that into consideration, or the estrogenic effects, and they don't take the potential interactions with medications. And just because it's on the body of one person, but somebody over here is smelling it, doesn't mean that we're not getting it. Because remember, I started the video. The olfactory system, inhalation, is powerful. So just because somebody is smelling it doesn't mean that it's not affecting them. It is affecting them. And if they're taking medications, you better believe it's affecting them. And the potential for interactions is there. So what is the bottom line to this entire video? Mindfulness. We're going to talk about scent. Let's be aware and understand that, there's a lot going on out here that we have no control over. And I applaud everybody who uses oils, because, as you know, I'm a big fan of essential oils. And I believe there's other ways to use them, so that we get the full benefit and that we don't affect other people so adversely. And part of that is don't go into a confined area with a lot of scent. But it has nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything wrong, and they're not doing anything wrong. It's a reaction to the environment. It's a reaction to both the external and the internal environment. And if we can recognize that, and we can just kind of not tiptoe, but you know what I'm saying, be aware and recognize the fact that we're all in this together. I think that's what I'm going to leave it at that today. For those of you who have stayed this far and watched the whole thing or listened, thank you for being here. My name is Tammy again. Please subscribe and share. If you have been with me this whole time, just know how much I appreciate you. You're doing all the donations that make a big difference for me. So I don't want to go without saying thank you for those. And your comments, your emails. Join me on Aromatherapy as a Lifestyle. You can also join me over on Ko-fi, KO-FI. Both links are in the box below. And let's just, let's stay connected. We're in this together, and we can grow, and we can just make a huge difference in the world through conversation. All right, you guys take care. I'll talk to you later.